You hear me?
Yes, I can, Jimmy.
Okay, nice. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining this session of our coffee chat with procurement leaders. And we are honored today to have Shirley Mower from DHL Australia joining us today. Hello, Shirley. Welcome to Sausage Thought Leaders on Procurement. To kickstart the first question, perhaps can you introduce yourself in terms of your role at DHL? How long you have been with DHL and some of the innovative programs that you have seen out there? Over to you, Shirley.
Lovely. Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks. Thanks for that very kind introduction. Yes, I've been working at DPDHL for 15 years now as of April, so quite a milestone. All through that, it has been in procurement. And I've seen a lot of changes going on through those 15 years. But I have to say, nothing as fast as what we're seeing in these last few years, particularly around automation, digitalization, and now ESG. So we're definitely seeing a lot of that coming through in the procurement sphere. I guess Industry 4.0 and 5.0 definitely encapsulating these trends, with 4.0 really driving that automation, digitalization focus. And from our point of view as a procurement team, we definitely have to be on the forefront of these innovation trends to make sure that DHL doesn't fall behind. So some of the things that, from DHL's point of view, we've implemented robotics, augmented reality. We have a lot of automation coming through in that big spend environment. Um, but we also look at digitalization projects that streamline processes, and not just by offshoring invoicing and things like that, but really looking at what we're doing internally so that we can create those efficiencies but still offer that typical procurement requirement of competitive pricing. And I guess one of those sort of projects would be our marketplace solution, which we've been working on now for about 1.5 years with Sourceage. Um, and I think it's really a positive way of being able to deal with a very low value spend in our tail spend, but also making it compliant and transparent to the business.
Thank
Would
you
you
very
like me?
much. Yeah, Shirley. So maybe to extend on the first part of the question as well. We talked about some of the innovative programs out there. A lot of companies are also dealing with ESG component, right? So in terms of their long tail spend, critical spend, every single company are looking at how do I actually buy more from green certified suppliers, or even on the critical spend part. And long tail spend, of course, is a very interesting area where I think over the last 1.5 years, Sausage has been involved in the project hand in hand together with DHL to walk through the entire journey. But perhaps, before we jump into, how do we actually scale that solution, maybe we can take a step back and look at, how did we actually kickstart this project, 1.5 years ago, right? To bring our audience
Yeah.
back to pre-COVID, perhaps, yeah.
Can you remember that far back? Can we remember pre-COVID? I'm not sure. Um, Absolutely. What an exciting time it was, Jiming. Remember, this all started with an introduction in Singapore with yourself and my colleague Yi Hong, just introducing Sourceage and what you could do. That then extended to another conversation with yourself and the head of procurement there as well, Geraldine. And we had been looking at a marketplace solution prior to that discussion that had been set up in Germany. And it was a bit clunky, to be honest. It was, it was there, it was working, but it wasn't really giving us the transparency or the dynamics that we needed. And when Yi Hong spoke to me about Sourceage and the program, I got extraordinarily excited because I thought this could be something very special. We could really, do something special with this approach. And so, what started as an introduction moved into that conversation around what you could offer. And then I think it was you and Yihong and I sitting down around the table going, well, how can we develop this, and how can we mold this marketplace model into a DPDHL really strict processing structure that we have. And it was definitely challenging, I can say, but it was exciting. And I think we had a couple of conversations, and the whole process is now subsequently developed and morphed into the solution that we have today, which is, I think, best in class.
Yep, thank you very much, Shirley. Yeah, so in fact, I think it has been quite a journey, right? And I do remember, of course, about 1.5 or even 2 years ago, while we had the discussion, part of the entire process of rolling out the solution also involves, I think dealing with the IT team, right? To go through the technical due diligence, we have to present to the head of IT in terms of our technical, architecture. So there's a lot of, I guess, behind of the scenes work, right? As you know, in terms of procurement, onboarding a new vendor, especially from the tech side or even from a service provider side, like us, when we provide the end-to-end solution plus facilitation of the payments as well. Now, before we jump into the aspect of some of the challenges that we have overcome, perhaps we can let the audience also know, right? What are some of the key pain points we are solving over here, with the introduction of Sausage, as a solution, right, in terms of managing and streamlining long queue spend for DHL. Yeah.
Certainly, certainly. So you can imagine DPDHL is a very large company. We have many different business divisions, and we have a lot of people out there who are, doing the right thing by DPDHL every day, without doubt. But, as with most businesses, there are other avenues for, low value items that we need to buy straight away, and not necessarily having that transparency or that full governance around it. So even though it was managed and managed well, it was a after the event sort of solution, and we were also getting a lot of pushback from our business partners saying, we can buy this cheaper at Amazon. Like, come on, you guys, what's going on with you? Aren't you the best, procurement team in the world? And it sort of was quite a little bit of an uncomfortable conversation to say, well, they do have more buying power in this low level area than we do, because they're doing it from a global perspective rather than, localized or regionalized, whatever it is that we're doing. So that was some of the way that things were working. So it sort of developed into how we wanted to get the solution to work, making sure that when we were buying product that it was compliant, that we had it following the right approval process, that the managers were on top of the spend before it happened, that the cash flow, from a flow point of view, we were seeing the information flowing through our finance system so that our finance teams could manage it more effectively, and that we were also being able to offer more options to our end users, so that those CFOs are going, I can buy it cheaper here. Well, okay, you can now. You can actually buy it. I mean, there's always a difference between buying a product from a marketplace like Amazon or Lazada to buying from a contracted spend. Obviously, if we're putting in a contract, we're protecting DPDHL through those contracted terms, which we may not necessarily get from an Amazon buy, for example. But it's important to be able to provide them with that information and give them all the information that they need behind the scenes, so that they can see what that means. So, how can they get it replaced, all that type of thing, compared to the very good deals that we put in place, and that they make that decision at point of call. So then they have that transparency. They know what they're accepting. The solution goes through. As I said, it goes through before the spend, and then it gets approved and then managed in that way. I think, actually, before you jump in, the other thing that I really wanted to say was that having the Sausage customer service behind the scenes as well really, really helped engaging with our users, so that they were fully aware of those T's and C's that were there, and keeping them abreast of anything that they needed to know.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point because if you think about just from a marketplace standpoint, right? So every time you go and buy from marketplace, especially in today context, e-commerce is really prevalent, right? In many different countries, and I believe same case in Australia as well. You can just hop into any e-commerce platform, Woolworths and Amazon Australia. You click on something and then you check out. But of course, there's certain aspect in terms of corporate spend where they may require certain kinds of customization or technical support, hand in hand with the user, right? And that's when, we see that there's a role for hybrid model where you have the platform, you have the contents, and you have a service layer, right? Where your customer service or payment service from Sausage side could actually provide a lot of help to your end users, right? From end to end, right? Be it, from the finance team to the HR to, people working in the warehouse where they have to requisite for certain items, especially those more customized one in the case of corporate gifts, right? So I think that's really interesting where we have experience firsthand in how we actually engage users, not just only in Singapore where we started as a pilot, but also I now in several other countries and expanding to the rest of APAC together with DHL as well. And I think talking about expansion to of the solution and adoption to other countries is not really easy, especially Asia is not one country. It has several different countries and cultures involved in it. So in terms of when you first started in Singapore and then scaling the solution, right, and growing the solution in terms of adoption to other regions, what are some of the key challenges you face? And maybe that's more on the internal side. If you feel free to share, or maybe if you're not comfortable, that's fine as well. And how do you actually overcome some of these challenges internally? Yeah.
Yeah, I think probably one of the key areas that we needed to overcome, and let me just step back. When we first started the pilot in Singapore, everybody was on board. The CFO was the person that had said, I can buy this cheaper in Amazon. And here all of a sudden we're offering him a solution that he could. So definitely the Singapore team were there with us and, happy to sort of run through. Our only hiccup there was COVID. So I guess number one, don't implement in COVID because there's no one at the office to order anything. So that's probably a good thing. Um, and then the pilot really started to, get traction and we started to see more people working in it. And we were developing and going at, as I said, we were developing and morphing it into what was going to work for the business to get usage, to get them used to the system. And then it sort of really received some really good traction. So we thought that rolling out into the other countries would be a breeze. We had done this wonderful project. We had the CFO on board, and then it would be easy enough to roll into the other countries. But not so easy. And I think that was one of our first stumbling blocks, was that we were following the process of, okay, number one, step one, get this aligned with the CFOs and the business and make sure everybody's happy. Then step two, let's get the product listing aligned. And then step three, let's start working on the system. And I think that we realized that we probably had to put more effort into the beginning and get it done earlier so that because the actual implementation was a lot quicker than the actual alignment. So making sure that we had the alignment, that we had the training. So definitely communicate what the solution is, what it does, the value and the benefit of the solution to the business. So we became the salespeople, we became your voice, in other words, Jimmy, to the business to say this is why we should be going down this track. So definitely step one, don't do it in COVID or any type of pandemic. And then two,
Sure.
really align and communicate up front.
That's really a good point, right? I mean, COVID is just, hitting us out of the blue, in March or early 2020, right? And back then we were in the midst of rolling out, especially in April, right? We hired someone as well. Unfortunately, that person, left early on in the project. But, I think when one of our colleagues joined in July, that's when, it really kickstart because I think in July period, it was a period of time where Singapore really, released some of the, people to be able to work in office. So I think there was some activity and movement. But I think between March and June period, perhaps that 2 to 3 months, right? I think, really people were staying at home and all that. So it was really interesting, I think, in terms of hindsight, how we actually, got started and eventually, hit success, even though I think it was a very bad timing of COVID. But, I think COVID also bring about the other point where people are willing to, try new things, I feel, or have the bandwidth to come up with something new while, they have sort of more time to, sit back and say, hey, let's come up with innovative programs to deal with such situations. Okay, and the other aspect, just curious, right? And this is on behalf of the audience as well. You mentioned about, CFO being one of the key stakeholders, but, I guess it was really the procurement team trying to front this in terms of an innovation to all the end users to use. So do you see in most companies a similar trend where, procurement team should be the one sort of fronting this solution to get adoption, right? In terms of the internal voice, and CFO has to be the one, getting the approval, or got it the other way around, where the finance side has also to be the voice, trying to push such solutions in. Yep.
I look, to be honest, I think that procurement should be driving any type of innovation. We're the voice of the market. We're seeing what's out there and we're seeing the different solutions, and we're engaging with suppliers and asking them to bring their innovation to the table. So we definitely need to be doing that. And we should be challenging. We should be challenging the status quo and saying, look, the world is changing, we're changing. And I think that the CFOs, to be fair, they're also seeing it. They want, better ways. Their key areas are, obviously we want it cheaper at really good product, and, we want to be, safe and secure when we're buying these products, which is why they come to us in procurement to sort of manage this. But if we're going to continue being leaders in our procurement environment, do we really need to be focusing on tail spend? Is that where our mind should be going? And to be fair, you get a lot of noise from the low spend area as well. A lot of people, oh, but I just need to buy the, and I just need it now. There's a lot of that interrupts your day and then takes you away from your core role of being a strategic sourcing manager. So if we can find an effective way that reduces the noise, maintains compliance, and brings a cost benefit, then that's got to be a great project for us to bring to the table. Yeah, I'm fully across procurement, driving and leading this. I think in some ways we've been doing it from a procurement point of view. We've been rolling it out because it has been our baby, to be honest. I'm thinking maybe in some other companies, once you've implemented, then you can probably move it across to maybe a purchasing team to sort of manage and, take that day-to-day management, and maybe even if you're going to extend it into other areas, manage that component as well. But we've been very, very close to the implementation, and it's because we want to make sure it's done, that we understand each country's requirement, because as we extend it out into the other countries, there's different dynamics, there's different cultures, there's different things that need to be taken into account. And from our point of view as the supplier manager, we need to be able to manage SourceAge and say, okay, we need this to be slightly different. We need it to, in order to make Vietnam happy, or in order to make Japan happy, we need to have, a local entity, or we need to have, something that meets their local requirements. So I think from that point of view, it definitely does sit with us. It may be different in other companies. It depends on the structure, but for us, yeah, it shows our reputation as being innovative providers. I think it just cements us in that
Yeah.
way.
I do agree. I mean, DHL has been at the forefront of many of the key innovation, not just in logistics sector. I think even from this example of, fronting a solution like sausage, where I think before that, when I was talking to Yi Hong, right, your colleague, he can't really find a similar solution in Asia. I mean, different countries might actually be looking to connect, let's say in Indonesia with Bukalapak, or maybe in Japan with Amazon or whatever, but it becomes increasingly inefficient, right, to manage many different localized integration. Do you think so? Yeah.
I agree, absolutely.
Yeah.
And doing what we've done by, centralizing this approach, it means that we're standardizing the way that we go forward. So we have a standardized approach, the way that we, engage in the communication, the topics that we're covering, the reasons that we're doing it, all very standardized, and it's applicable across the region. And then when we're starting to roll it out, it's streamlined. We're there because we know exactly what needs to be done because we've done it before. If we're doing it locally, then it could be set up in a different way, which means that maybe it's not functioning the way it should, or maybe they don't have that, customer service level that helps. So, we need to make sure that if we're providing a top class innovative solution, that we're offering it to everybody and that we can scale it across the region.
Yeah, very true, very true. Because different, if it's left to different localized region, right, to implement their own solution. One of the problem, of course, is also the reconciliation for all the spend analytics report, right? So you get sort of different formats, and maybe some platforms don't provide that, and stuff like that, right? So ability to really aggregate that into one single service partner or party, right? Like Sausage enable that report to be standardized also, right, across the board for different regions. And of course, our vision, of course, is to finally one day when Sausage grows big enough, we can scale together with DHL to the rest of the region beyond Asia as well, to Europe, US, or South America and all that. So I think this is a really long journey and long term win-win partnership for both parties as well. So I think we touch on this topic of people in other companies who may also I think in some contexts be resistant, right? Especially in other contexts, other countries or other companies. So what would you say to people who are now thinking, okay, should I be implementing this solution, or maybe I'm feeling a bit resistant that okay, I should do it my own way of just going through my internal process, right? What would you say to these people in terms of words of encouragement as well? Yeah.
I think that one of the biggest things that I can say to others is really consider the amount of time that you are spending at the moment on that low tail spend and the value that you're getting out of managing it, right? So, are you really bringing value? Is it bringing value to you as a procurement person? Are you able to bring the best for the business if you're spending a portion of your time having to manage that type of spend? Think about if you're able to innovate it and implement it into your current system so that it moves seamlessly through it, then the value that you're going to get is that you are then managing the supplier rather than 100 different suppliers who are just providing one or two things every now and then, and that you're able to then be able to pull that together and manage it in one single supplier rather than the multiple. That will free up your time to be able to focus in those areas that you need to focus in that strategic environment. And I know because I've been there, and I know how hard it is sometimes to pull yourself out of it. And I know that sometimes there's a lot of work that needs to be done in order to get to the position where you can then, walk away. But let me say, I know that the people in my countries who have this in place, their impact in low tail spend has reduced immensely, and they are now just focusing more on that next level of spend. So that's something that I would recommend from that point of view. With
Yeah.
the particular system that we've done and working with SourceAge, what I love about it is the ability to flex with what we need. So when we sit down and I say, what about how about if we can do this? Then it's not a closed off discussion. It's not a no, this is a straight off the shelf solution that you need to fit within an X amount within a box. And if you don't fit in that box, then any further changes are going to cost more and more and more and more. So what I like is that I can come to the table or any of my team actually can come to the table and say, okay, we've got a little challenge with this. How do we work? And we work together to flex and build the solution that we need. And so now in each of these countries that we've implemented and each of the different divisions that we've implemented, we have a solution now that meets our internal governance and that our CFOs are seeing as providing a competitive pricing environment. And it's also easy to use for our people because they're already used to using our current P2P solution. So all it does is just give them an extra opportunity within that solution to find what they need. And then you add that to the great customer service and engagement that we get on a day-to-day basis. I mean, really, what's not to love about the solution?
Yeah, thank you very much, Shirley. Yeah, so I think that also briefly covers a bit on sausage, your words of testimonial to sausage as well. One of the key point also to add on from my side is that I think for the other implementation as opposed to DHL side, I think some of the other companies pretty much more localized in terms of the implementation. Sometimes do not really see like in terms of the whole picture, right? Like what you said, they may be focusing a lot just on say cost savings versus the manpower efficiency that we can bring about in terms of a change, right? So that the current procurement folks within each of the organization can really focus on the really high value added stuff in terms of negotiation for critical spend or the mid tier spend in that sense, so that the long tail spend actually can still achieve a lot of efficiency and some of the savings converted from manpower efficiency by outsourcing to a platform like Sausage, for instance, right? So just any last words you like to give to the audience? Yeah.
I did have a very good thought just then and it's gone. But I think the key thing is that keep your mind open. Be open to innovation and differences. Think about things. Don't put yourself in a box and go, this is what we've done. This is the way we've always done it. Put yourself outside of that box and think, if I had a greenfield space and I wanted to do this, how could I do this better? And really open your mind up to what could be rather than what is. And I think that if you do that, then you're definitely going to get a solution one way or another that's going to be, much, much better than what you're seeing already.
Well, thank you very much, Shirley, again for joining this session. We are really honored to have your experience and sharing in terms of the entire journey we have walked through. And of course, we are still at the starting point, right? Just 1% of the accomplishment. So there are still a lot of steps for us to improve further, and grow the usage, the adoption to the rest of the vision, and of course for existing countries as well. Thank you so much again, for your words to the audience, and we hope to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Jimmy. I really appreciate the opportunity.